I know everyone hates this strike, especially the Grandmaster version. But personally, the Corrupted is actually one of my favorites. And if you can get the timing down on this strike, you could potentially get sub 15-minute runs. Not only can you get sub 15-minute runs, but it's also double loot this week. And going into Witch Queen, you're gonna need a lot of things. You're gonna need prisms, you're gonna need Ascendant shards. And if you're like me, I'm just filling up my Postmaster with these materials. That way, when I do inevitably spin all these Ascendant shards and prisms, I'll have some extra sitting in my Postmaster. Now, dropping in the loot table this week is Hung Jury and the Hothead. Now, the Hothead is probably the one I'm targeting the most. We recently just got Gjallarhorn back in the game. And one of the beautiful things about Gjallarhorn is that it actually gives other rocket launchers Wolfpack rounds. Now, just to briefly go over the role that I'm going for, role number 1 would actually be Vorpal and either Field Prep, Demolitionist, or even Ensemble, with Impact Casing, of course, or Clown Cartridge, Demolitionist, Field Prep, Tracking, Ensemble, etc. The main thing is I'm going for Clown Cartridge and Vorpal. You're probably wondering why not Explosive Light? That's still a very good perk, and I do have an Explosive Light role. Explosive Light, though, has been confirmed to bug out with Wolfpack rounds. It's like it doesn't scale. So long story short, Clown Cartridge, Vorpal, those are the two main ones I'm going for with Impact Casing on this weapon. And Hothead could potentially be one of the go-to rocket launchers next season, alongside Gjallarhorn in DPS phases. Now, with that being said, modifiers this week is, of course, Epitaph. We're taking combatants generate Blight Geysers when defeated. You have Unstoppable champions and Overload champions, all the Grandmaster Nightfall modifiers, as well as Sedia's Durance. Arc damage increase, knockback damage and distance increase. Now, there's been some drastic changes to Sedia and this overall Nightfall. First up, her knockback is not nearly as bad. It can still boop you off, but it's much more manageable now. And secondly, this area between the first encounter going into the elevator room, there is no more ads in this area. That's right, they completely cleared out the ads here, which instantly trims off a good minute and a half, maybe even 2 minutes. And it also eliminates the need for an Invis Hunter. Now, what we were rocking was actually 1 Revenant Hunter and 2 Well of Radiance Warlocks. Although I will say, you don't have to rock those subclasses, because back in the day, we would say things like you need to do the boom strat, you need to take advantage of things like focusing lens, and you can still do that, but there is a point in the boss room where too much damage will hurt you, which is what I want to bring up first before we get into the beginning portion of this Nightfall. When dealing with Sedia, the room opens up with her going to the right side, and then a number of ads will pour in. What you actually want to do is just sit there and hug the rock, and as the ads are coming in, you want to just drop a stasis grenade down or something, maybe even a Well of Radiance just to keep your team alive, and go ahead and clear out those ads. Upon clearing out those ads, though, someone needs to go pick up the relic, and everyone needs to go to the front of the room, almost where the gate would be when Sedia actually teleports to the Shattered Realm. Now, you want to be right here because you get a clear line of sight of Sedia when she teleports to the other side. Throw the relic at her, pop her shield, and then proceed to do damage. Now, interestingly enough, this is where doing too much damage can hurt you. You only want to get her health down to about half. If you get her health down below that, substantially so, Sedia would actually skip her next teleport and go straight to the next realm, which means you have to complete this Nightfall all the way to the end, deal with another Overload champion, another Unstoppable champion, and then go all the way up to the top. It's extremely aggravating. What you want to do, get her health to half. She'll teleport to the other side and then finish her off. This will allow you to completely skip that next section. Now, the reason why I bring up over damaging is kind of a problem for us now is because, number 1, my teammates were using Sleeper, which Sleeper got a 10% buff. Number 2, Sedia actually has a higher crit multiplier than other bosses, meaning anything that does crit damage does a hell of a lot more damage to her. We were doing so much damage that there was a few times I didn't even damage Sedia. I just sat there and just kept shooting her with my Vex Mythoclast, letting my teammates do the damage, just to make sure we didn't go past her health threshold, which is why I don't think you need the boom strat. You don't need focusing lens here. You really just need a linear fusion rifle, whether it's Sleeper, Reed's Regret, which is what I'm using here with Firing Line, and just try not to over damage her. And if done correctly, guys, you will completely skip that next portion, immediately get your loot, and it's a GG's. Now, talking about the rest of the Nightfall, let me go over how to really optimize this bad baby. First up, let's talk about my loadout. Now, I feel like my loadout right now is pretty good as just a support player, but also for my damage. I'm, of course, rocking Vex Mythoclast with Particle Deconstruction, as well as Unstoppable Fusion Rifles. I'm also pairing this with Thermoclastic Strike, which will allow me to stun Overload champions. champions, as I'm also rocking shurikens on my Revenant class. Now, I will actually link in the description below and in a comment below my build, as you can essentially just click that link and it'll take you to dim and you can pretty much plug away. But I'm rocking the usual, like taking charge, protective light, stacks on stacks. The only thing that's kind of a weird one here is I am taking advantage of radiant light, but nothing really giving me that plus 20 in strength, right? Which kind of hurts my soul to see that. The good thing is I don't really need the extra strength, because my thermoclastic strike, when a champion is stunned, it instantly refreshes my melee. The problem is these overload champions, dude, are so aggravating. Like, I find that overload champions just recover way too fast. So you really, if you're gonna depend on thermoclastic strike, you gotta be doing damage very quickly with your teammates. But the rest of the build here is just for survivability, particle deconstruction for that 40% debuff, Aeon gauntlets with Sect of Insight, providing heavy ammo and special ammo for my teammates. Again, if this is a support build you're interested in, I'll link a link to that in the description below. With that being said though, the Nightfall opens up with an overload champion right in front of you. Actually, you're gonna get two in front of you. One of them is this Avacree, this Scorn champion. Get a stun off on him and immediately gun him down. There'll also be an overload champion that starts to walk across, and whoever it is that's rocking an overload bow on your team, and I do suggest having one person at least rocking overload bow, stun that overload champion and go ahead and gun him down from afar. After dealing with this champion though, hop on your Sparrow, go to the right side, go all the way around, and then deal with the mini boss in this area. After you kill this mini boss, you do not have to sit in this area. I know there's another overload champion that will eventually spawn, but if you don't kill anything else and you move past everything, that overload champion won't spawn and you'll still get platinum. Now, as you enter in this next area, the Ascended Plane. Now, this area has no more ads in it, which is fantastic. You save so much time here. However, there is some issues with the shaders. By shaders, I mean literally when you first walk into this room, you are blinded. It is so dark. It's almost like Destiny is bugging out right here and just not loading the shaders properly. Therefore, everything is just super dark. But when you drop down into the elevator room, you'll have some scions to deal with, and then you can activate the elevator room. Normally, we would get here by like a minute and a half, so none of us would have supers. And this room is kind of difficult without some supers. But you want to pass these balls to each other, get enough charges going, pop the shields, deal with the mini bosses and mages that are spawning, and then the second phase will start, which is by far the harder phase here, which has a number of ads that spawn there in the middle of the room with some more high health targets. By this point, hopefully you do have a super. If not, just rotate, guys. Normally, these majors and these mini bosses split up from one another, so you can rotate, you can get away from them. Just go from the inside, cut past them, and single out one at a time. But upon dealing with these guys, this will then open up the next section of the Nightfall, which will result in an unstoppable champion being there at the top, and a number of ads, and a shrieker there behind them. We normally would drop a well right here, deal with the unstoppable, and then deal with the ads. Now, as you move up past this shrieker, you actually have some knights here with arc shields. This is where having someone with an arc weapon is super beneficial. Bombad was actually rocking a third axiom, but pop that shield, kill these knights, and then proceed to move up and deal with this unstoppable champion. Now, this is a perfect opportunity to get a finish off to provide heavy ammo for your teammates. You're actually going to have two unstoppable champions here that you can finish off. Now, some issues with finishing champions currently. I don't know what's going on. It's almost like Bungie has already added Witch Queen into the game, and the game is just bugging the hell out. But there were multiple times yesterday I would finish a champion, and the champion was not dead. More so, not only was the champion not dead, the champion was actually no longer visible on my screen. I would just be taking damage from literally nothing, and my teammates would have to kill the champion. This is an extremely annoying bug that can actually result in your team wiping. Just know, if you happen to be the guy that goes for the finish and you don't actually finish the opponent off or the champion off, have your teammates call out where he is and get the hell away from it until the champion becomes visible on your screen again. Again, this happened multiple times yesterday. It wasn't just a one-off bug or anything. Now, moving up into this next room, this is a spot here that can take you all of 5 minutes or 15 minutes. You want to pop your well right here behind this left pillar. Now, the reason why you want to do this is sometimes you have a champion that spawns on the left or sometimes on the right. So this gives you visibility on both sides. Deal with that champion and then immediately move to the boss. Gun him down, use sleeper, use your linears, use particle deconstruction, immediately kill this boss, and then you'll TP to the next area. Now, when you TP to this next area, run up to the stairs up here. Go to the top of them. You've got cover, and what's so great about it is that it funnels these enemies up the stairs one at a time right after each other. Not only do you have the ads coming up here, but you also have all the unstoppable unstoppable champions here. Now, you do have some enemies here with void shields, so have a void weapon ready to deal with them, and some solar shields, which is of course easy to deal with Vex Mythoclast. But stun these champions, get a couple finishes off if you need, and after you deal with the unstoppable champions and you have the enemies down there locked in place, just gun the boss down, guys. As soon as you kill this boss, everything in this room despawns except for the shriekers. That is something that you have to watch out for, because if you die over here when your teammates go through the portal, you cannot go back to get your teammates. Now, move through this portal, watch out for the shriekers, and you'll be spawned right here in front of a bunch of thrall, as well as some unstoppable taking phalanxes. Deal with those champions, get some finishes off if you can, provide some heavy ammo, and then start moving up. Now, you're gonna have an overload champion that sometimes is right there on the right waiting for you. A lot of times though, if you take too long, that champion will already have moved down. You'll also have an ad there on the left that has a void shield, a number of unstoppable champions in the middle as well. And I wouldn't suggest finishing off both of these champions, probably just one, but then proceed to move up, deal with the overload that's on the left and the one that is on the right. Upon dealing with both of those champions though, as well as the unstoppables there in the middle, you do not have to kill that mini boss. Now, you do need to be careful because that mini boss can shred you. So whoever it is that's rocking Well of Radiance, throw a healing grenade out there. That'll keep you alive. That'll keep Yadix there from completely destroying you, and just maneuver past them and head into the ascendant plane. Now you're gonna drop down, and listen, I'm gonna talk about this real quick. Everyone drops down differently. I like to just kind of hit that first rock, that second rock, and then just jump over, almost like I'm about to jump on top of that rock, and you'll just slide right past everything. There's other ways to do it that are a little safer, but this is just kind of like my rush way of doing it. When you drop down though, you're actually going to be met with a number of void shielded ads, as well as an overload taken hobgoblin. Deal with these guys, move up, and whoever it is that's rocking a void weapon, you'll have a number of void shields even past this point. Now, dropping into this next area right here, there's a lot of ads, and I know it probably doesn't look like it because they're all invisible, or a lot of them are. Drop down, I like to actually throw a dust fill grenade to the left and then immediately cast my super on everything trying to collapse on us. We even drop a well right here. We drop it behind the pillar, by the way, because there's been multiple times where the ads will actually destroy our Well of Radiance. Deal with these champions. You even have a mini boss there to deal with. You can even finish him if necessary, and then proceed to look down, and you'll have an overload hobgoblin looking at you with a ravenous taken vandal as well. I would suggest dealing with the overload first. If you start messing with that vandal too quickly, especially if they're right next to the overload champion, they'll throw out that geyser. Again, that's one of the modifiers, right? Where they just throw those geysers out constantly, and they'll protect the overload champion. Get a finish off if you can, and then proceed to move to the next area where you have another overload taken hobgoblin and a vandal. Now, again, like we just talked about in the boss room, if done correctly, guys, this room is the easiest room in the entire Nightfall, especially given the fact of how much more damage weapons like Sleeper is doing if you've got particle deconstruction, and that's really all you need. That and a Well of Radiance. You don't need the boom strat. You don't need focusing lens. You don't need a tether. There is a certain point where there is too much damage, and if you do that, you will screw this room up, and it'll take you to the next realm, which could add on easily an extra 5 minutes or potentially a wipe. But if done correctly, you will immediately kill Sedia when she TPs to the other side and still get platinum for this Nightfall at double loot. Are you going to be able to do this Nightfall sub 15 minutes? You definitely can if done perfectly. We were not having perfect runs yesterday. We got close, but at the end of the day, double loot for 16, 17-minute runs, that's not bad. So guys, that is our Nightfall guide. For those wondering what else we were using weapon-wise, these were the loadouts that Noja and Bombad were both using. Noja was also rocking blinding grenades on his GL, which, by the way, is really, really good. I was rocking a Shepherd's Watch. This is one of my new roles that I got with Firing Line Outlaw. Now, I really like Firing Line when I'm with teammates because it's 20% more damage, right? Vorpal on special is still 15%. I think a Succession is still the better role here, but this Shepherd's Watch was really actually doing better for me, and I actually think I prefer it more over Eye of Soul. And of course, I have my Reed's Regret with Firing Line Triple Tap, which is fantastic. Again, we used to say things like Reed's Regret wasn't exactly meta because it dealt stasis damage and it didn't work with our boom strat. But now that boom strat is pretty much going away after this season, and on top of that, Bungie pretty much nerfed the boom strat in multiple ways. Reed's Regret, Firing Line, fantastic option. Way better than Vorpal. Vorpal on heavy weapons is 10%. Firing Line, 20%. So guys, good luck this week. And if you're interested in our god roll reviews for things like the Hung Jury, there will be a link card to that. And the Hothead. Hopefully I get the god roll this week, guys. I do want to review it. I really think that Hothead with the right roll may be the play next season, especially considering we are probably going to get artifact mods for rocket launchers. But if you can imagine having a team inside of the raid dealing damage, one person rocking Galahorn for the Wolfpack rounds, everyone else rocking a Hothead with that perfect roll, getting Wolfpack rounds granted to them. You can see where this can become meta. And we actually did a side-by-side comparison here of damage tests in which legendary rocket launchers with the right setup can 100% outcompete Galahorn. Not by much, but they can. And this frees up the exotic slot for the rest of your teammates. So guys, get a god roll Hothead. Again, like I mentioned, Clown Cartridge, Demolitionist. For me, those are like one of the best for damage phases, right? With impact casing. So guys, good luck this week. Have fun with the grind. And come check us out on Twitch. We'll be live over there attempting this Nightfall solo. I know, we're nuts. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching. And as always,
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.